Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dynasty Gambit. I'm Kyle Senra, and join me, as always, my co-hosts, Devin and Brian. How are you guys doing?
Good. How about you, Kyle? Looking
Doing
forward
great,
to doing
Brian.
the mock drafts here, so it's going to be some good times.
Yeah, we love drafting, whether it's real or mock. We love talking, and a lot of good people in this mock draft, including some of our guests here. We've got former co-host of the show, Dr. James Freddy. How you doing, Doc?
I'm doing well. I guess it's good to hear you have some good people in this draft, and none of those people could be here, so you got me instead.
I mean, you are in the draft, so I don't know what that implies, but thanks for joining us here as well on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me back, guys.
And speaking of having you back, someone who's been on almost all the Going for Two live shows, but Dynasty Gambit a few times. So welcome back, Zach Pulowski. Big time, Zach, now on the Going for Two live network here.
I don't know about that, but I'm making my rounds. I'm trying to appear on it, as many of them as I can. Soon enough, I'll get on all of them.
Zach's going for your title, Kyle. He's going for the hardest working man in fantasy football. He's coming for the belt, so you better watch out.
I'm trying to think of which shows I haven't been on now. I guess what shows we have? Because you've been on shows I haven't been on. Yeah, for sure. Actually, you've already done that. I haven't been on the hot route, for instance. So
we've been on. I'm sure you've been on ones I haven't been on though either. I'm sure vice versa.
Yeah, I did get on Speak On it one time. Gracious enough, those guys. But yeah, tons of shows on the Going for Two Live network. And while we're rambling about that, encourage people to check out the Going for Two Live network wherever you are, streaming wise. You've got YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. There's Twitter video as well. We can't see the comments from Twitter though, so really would recommend people to go to YouTube, especially if you want to interact with us. Let us know your thoughts about Dynasty in general, fantasy football, or this the results of this mock draft that we've done. So there's 5 people in here. There were 12 people in the chat, mostly from Going for Two. And so, yeah, I guess, shall we get started then?
Sounds good to me.
Let's do it.
We like to ramble. We'll take a long time with a lot of picks. So here we go. Dynasty Rewind is not on the Going for Two Live network, however. They're great too, though. We've got a bit of crossover. I know Dan the B League says he works out, he helps out with Dynasty Rewind, so there's a bit of a connection there to the Going for Two family. But appreciate Gator J for tuning in. So right off the bat, Superflex, 12 teams, conventional PPR scoring. Kind of makes sense to see 6 quarterbacks in the first 7 rounds, right? Like, anyone doing startups this year, it seems like that's kind of what it's going to be, right?
Honestly, I kind of thought there'd be a little more in the first, obviously 6 of them went, but I was a little shocked there wasn't 1 or 2 more that went in the first round.
Yeah, I mean,
I've been a part of some super flex drafts where literally the first 12 picks are just quarterbacks. It's like people just kind of know what's going on. I mean, there's been a couple teams I'm sure we'll talk about where some waited on quarterback in the first 2 rounds and others didn't. We'll see how that panned out for him. But, I'm not saying that was a bad strategy because, if you get someone like Jefferson or Chase, but just a little shocked that it wasn't maybe 1 or 2 more up there.
I was surprised to see Najee go 110. I mean, I like Najee a lot, but in almost all the Superflex startups I've done so far this year, a few more QBs are usually getting taken before him.
Yeah. Well, his age hurts him too. You know what I mean? I mean, most people, he's already 24. Granted, he's under contract for 4 years, so that part really doesn't matter. But, he's a little older than some of these other running backs that have been going.
All right, so just right off the top, I mean, the top tier quarterbacks, it seems, especially the top 3, it seems like it's the same. It's always Josh Allen, Herbert, Mahomes in kind of whatever order. So I guess, Devin, you could talk about why you took Herbert at 102.
I think, he's kind of just number 2 in my overall rankings for quarterbacks at the moment, over Mahomes. I feel like this year specifically, he's got slightly better weapons, with Tyreek Hill leaving Kansas City. And then he's younger, so I'm always, just as how I always handle any type of dynasty league that I'm in, I'm always going for the younger guys. And as I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those picks, they're in a tier of their own. I just think personally he's going to have a better year. And so that plus him being younger led me to go towards Herbert.
One thing I'm starting to see in a lot of drafts is that Allen is becoming more of a consensus 101 than the other two. It's almost like a toss-up for second anymore.
Well, it's kind of funny because, like, a couple of years ago, like a year or two ago, a lot of people that would have like the hot take of like Josh Allen is the 101, and people would be getting roasted over that take. And now it kind of just seems like industry accepted that he pretty much is the 101, and you don't see a lot of people really getting too much slack for saying that anymore, or actually taking him like they used to.
I find it funny as well, just from a weapon standpoint. I mean, Mahomes kind of takes a hit losing Hill. Obviously, he still has Kelsey. Herbert has a few guys there, but I mean, Josh Allen realistically only has Diggs, a questionable running back core, and some questionable wide receivers around him. I guess Dawson Knox, but I wouldn't really bump him that high up over a lot of the weapons from those other guys. So, I mean, it's purely just off of Josh Allen's production and talent and nothing off of his supporting cast.
Speaking of bumping up, you'd say I got bumped out of the picture there. Gerson Aguirre are going to be joining us here, apparently having some difficulties, so he might be in and out, but we'll try and get him in as soon as we can. Let him talk about some of his picks as well once we get to that. But after those top three, it seems like that's where mock drafts could get, or drafts in general, get interesting. Right. Like, what's the 104 going to look like? So, Doc, I guess you're at a really interesting spot at the 104. So, going Lamar Jackson. I know I was in a startup with you last year where I think Lamar Jackson fell a little further. So, still kind of showing maybe where you're thinking that where you have him ranked in your quarterback rankings. But feel free to explain your thinking.
Well, we had a choice to which slot we wanted to pick. So I actually picked the 4 slot on purpose because I wanted to kind of force myself. I kind of see the 3 quarterbacks that went beforehand in a tier above. So my thought process was, does anybody get squirrely at 1, 2, 3, and then maybe one of those 3 guys fall to me? If not, let me really test myself in this mock draft and put myself at a decision and just see what it's going to come up with. And what it came up with was Lamar Jackson. And what I keep coming back to is, how young he is, the fact that he's in a contract year, but I still keep thinking about that MVP year where everything else was still pretty much the same. Like, there was questions about, are they going to run too much? Like, are his wide receivers any good? Is he going to be accurate enough? And it just, none of it seemed to matter. And just having that potential every time he steps on the field, he can run, he can pass, he can beat you so many ways, and the stars don't all have to align, and he can still be very productive. And if they do align, then he could be the number 1 fantasy football player and break football. And just the opportunity to pass that up was too much, so I had to take him.
I also have Lamar Jackson ranked at QB4, so I applaud the move, to be honest. So probably would have done the same.
I think I don't hate the move at all, but I think it got so much better for you when that follow-up round you got his number 1 weapon by a large margin. I mean, having that stack just makes both of them that much more valuable. So while I have Lamar at either my 4th or 5th QB as is, I mean, it's hard not to be upset with that stack right there. That's easy production on both fronts.
Brian, though, you're next up at 105. So again, after the top 3, it seems like there's a few players that you expect to see in the first round of every startup, but what's the exact order of them is can vary greatly, I think, starting at the 104. So your decision at 105 to go with Jonathan Taylor. Stunned silence, right? Like, of course, to go Jonathan Taylor. He's the RB1. Why wouldn't you take Jonathan Taylor? There's no reason not to. I love JT. I guess. I guess Zach, we'll go to you at the 106 or sorry 107.
I mean, I can speak somewhat about JT there as well.
Yeah, we can all hit on it.
Because for me, or I guess he's back. I mean, do we want to go back to him real quick with his pick?
Brian, can you hear us?
I'm here now. Yeah, I think I'm going to go through the same thing as Gerson, off and on, looks like. But yeah, if the question was about Taylor, I'm actually. To me, I see a top 4 quarterbacks, and then I see a group of 4 or so more. I just went ahead and split the difference and took Taylor.
Tier break, and yeah, that's where any temptation to go with a receiver instead of Taylor at all, or is Taylor kind of with non-quarterbacks in a tier of his own for you?
I had no hesitation. I felt like Taylor was the perfect spot right there. If you're going non-quarterback, of course you got to go one of the two wide receivers. The only thing I'm not a huge fan is just that the running back lifespan's a little bit less, but at the same time Taylor's really young and he was a tier by himself last year, so I'm hoping he goes that way for the next few years.
Gerson, welcome to the show.
You're
Also
on mute.
stunned silence, apparently.
Yeah, we can't
He's
hear
talking.
you, buddy.
We can see his mouth
Sorry, dude.
moving.
But while
Can't hear you.
Gerson's setting that up, maybe set up the fact that he is picking next at the 106. And I think it's Brian, the quarterbacks you were talking about, right?
About now?
Yeah, totally can hear you.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, that tier breaking quarterbacks apparently, according to Brian, and started the next tier quarterbacks, and you went with Kyler Murray. So Gerson, welcome to the show, and maybe you can talk about your Kyler Murray pick.
Yeah, I didn't feel great about it. I'll be honest. Kyler Murray is probably out of the first 7 quarterback there is, the one quarterback that I feel less confident in. I was hoping Lamar Jackson was going to fall to me. And then with Joe Burrow, I understand the upside, but I love running quarterbacks in fantasy. As much as I think Joe Burrow will have a lot of volume, Kyler Murray still has that canonical quarterback, and I was like, all right, it's either him or the other one, and I went with Kyler, and I'm glad I made that choice because Joe Burrow went next, so I was like, all right, I was thinking the right way.
Yeah, so we'll get Zach. That sets up your pick perfectly. So you're thinking with Joe Burrow there.
So I've done this in a few startups. I've really hoped that people see it as a top 6 tier of quarterbacks, and then I can get my hands on JT. I've had it happen in 1 so far, but out of the 5, 6, I mean, realistically, I probably like Burrow 4th most. I get the rushing upside of Kyler and Lamar, but for me, in a dynasty startup, I'm kind of looking at it from a longevity standpoint. Who's going to provide the most years of producing at a higher level? I mean, I know Burrow had that serious traumatic injury already, but at the same time, he's not an explosive, scrambling QB in the same way that Murray and Jackson are. So I see Burrow having a much longer career, and that alone just makes it more viable for me, where it's like, okay, cool, I have at least one of my QBs in a super flex league where don't have to stress that position for a long time to come, hopefully.
Devin, any thoughts about the first 7 picks? Like any surprises there before we talk about the back half of the first round?
For me personally, there's not really a surprise. I don't think with Brian taking Taylor was bad. I think I would probably take one of the wide receivers before I took a running back. Just kind of Brian already hinted himself, kind of just lifespan, everything like that. But then I also agree with Zach. I'm a pretty big Joe Burrow homer, so I kind of agree definitely with everything that you're saying there. That he's definitely got probably a little bit longer career compared to those two. I don't blame anyone for going that side with rush side, but I think I would have Burrow as my 4 as well. But can't really blame anyone for any of the picks they have up there. I just think personally, if anyone that sticks out, I probably would have went a receiver instead of a running back. But can't really blame you for taking Taylor.
For me,
I just want to
ahead.
speak to the injury thing real quick, because you mentioned the ACL and with Burrow, Zach, and just as a reminder, Tom Brady tore his ACL about, what was it, like 15 years ago now?
Right.
Yeah.
I realize he's an anomaly, but it doesn't seem like it's affected him too much, and he's still
Right.
around. So, in the year following the ACL injury, I understand the trepidation and Burrow slipped a little bit. I think he's pretty well past that. So it's not something that really weighs into my decision-making process with him at all. And I would argue that it shouldn't weigh in with anybody else's either. He's already demonstrated that he's recovered from that. We've seen what he can do. There's really not a compelling reason to worry about that going forward. I mean, football's a dangerous sport. Everybody's at risk, but I don't think there's going to be any lingering effects from that, either with regard to his performance or his career longevity. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I completely agree. He's not explosive like the type of player you would anticipate them having kind of a hangover in more
Right.
or less production, less performance on the field because of that injury. I mean, with Burrow, I'm not worried about it at all. And with that pick, with JT off the board already, for me, it was between Jamar and Joe Burrow. I have Jamar in a lot of leagues, and that's a guy where, I mean, him and Jefferson, you can't really go wrong, but I personally like Jamar more. I mean, apples, oranges. I mean,
Right.
like,
1A, 1B situation.
yeah, you can tell me you like Jefferson more. I get it. I'm not going to fight against it.
So I guess the big question, looking at the back half of the first round, right? I think no big surprises in the first 7 picks. Those last 5, I mean, Jefferson, Chase, no surprises there, and then you get to Najee Harris, Dak Prescott, and Russell Wilson. So that would be maybe the 3 that you won't see in every first round, because even if, like you were saying, Devin, like you were alluding to, if you prefer receiver over running back, you still probably won't see Jonathan Taylor move out of the first round too much.
Correct.
In those situations anyway. Najee Harris, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, you may see them leave the first round of a 12-team draft. So I guess I think the answer is obvious, but what's the most surprising pick of the first round, I suppose, to everyone? A few people have already hinted at it. Anyone have a different answer other than Najee Harris?
Well, I have a related question to you, Kyle. Were you surprised that you at the 12 spot were going to have a shot at Dak Prescott? Were you anticipating that? Were you disappointed? Would he have been your pick if he was still on the board? I mean, I see you went quarterback after that, but did you have Dak Prescott, rated up there? Would he have been one of your picks if he was still there? I realize that's a lot of questions, but you always answer questions. You don't get to answer any questions, so I figured give you.
I was definitely hoping Dak would fall to me, for sure. I'm to where, Brian hinted at a tier 4 after Lamar. I kind of think it's like a tier 4 with Lamar, and it kind of ends with Dak, and I view him closer to Burrow and Kyler than I would to the next tier of quarterbacks, I would say. So I kind of think the tier breaks there. So like Dak's a player that I would take over any non quarterback. Like I'd still probably, if it's 12 copies of Kyle drafted, Dak's probably going the 107 before Taylor, as much as I love Jonathan Taylor, before any wide receivers. So yeah.
Is anybody else curious? Like, is any, as far as the panel is concerned, is anybody else surprised that he's kind of sliding to, almost the turn at the end of the first round, or does that feel right to you?
I think it makes sense with, JT, Jefferson, and Chase. I think the only pick that surprises me, I mean, because say Prescott's at 10, you could show me any order after that first 3, and I could understand it. I think the only pick that really stood out, taking that person before Dak, was Najee. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, yes, the top 6, top 7 QBs, whether you have a split of 4 or however you see it, I think we're all in agreement that top 7 is in some order of the first 7 QBs that were taken.
Yep. I would say Najee is probably my least favorite pick in the first round, especially in a super flex. I get it, but to me, I'm not enamored with Najee, to be honest with you. It's just his age already. I mean, he's gonna get run to the ground. I mean, you're only gonna get a shelf life of like 4 years with him, because that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers do. They just run their running back to the ground, and he's already old. I mean, what is he, 20? I think he's, 6 months younger than Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs been in the league like 3 years now.
I think that's right, yeah.
So, I mean, that's something to me. The Russell Wilson at 112 was a little bit, because I've been debating this. Like, is Russell Wilson really this great? I mean, he's a good passer, but like we haven't really seen that rushing upside of 800 yards for what? I think, when was the last time he did it? Like 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Not even
longer. I can look that up.
Longer, right?
How dare you bait me into this subject, because I could go on a 20-minute rant on this exact thing in agreement, but I know we don't have the time for that. I mean, people are talking about Seattle, though, and then him moving to Denver. They're forgetting, Seattle had a bad offensive line. Yeah. That's what part of what was leading to him getting hit so much and getting hurt. Yeah, Denver has a great defense. They have some weapons, just like Seattle did. But guess what? That offensive line isn't good either. He's not having much protection there as well.
But
the other thing to keep.
No, go ahead.
The other thing to keep in mind that, he's also, older than the other quarterbacks were previously discussed. He's 33 years old, so he may do great for, who knows, 3 or 4 years, but at the same time, he's probably doesn't have that long of a shelf life. So.
I mean, go ahead.
It's okay, Kyle. You can just say it, man. You can just say it. Let it ride. Let's ride. You know.
Well, I mean, to answer your question, Gerson, he last ran for 800 yards in 2014, so that'd be 8 years ago.
Holy shit!
But he's like, even back in 2020, he still had 500 yards rushing. But I think it's the touchdowns. He had 11 touchdowns his first 3 years in the NFL, and he's had 12 in the last, since then. So, the last 7 years. So I think if nothing else, it was the rushing touchdowns more than anything else. I think that really that was something that was really present those first 3 years, and then not really much since. Like there's I noticed 1 year, 2018, he had 0 rushing touchdowns. So that's possible, but Denver probably didn't invest all that money for him to run. When they got some good running backs. So yeah, you're right in that sense, where he's probably not going to get many rushing touchdowns, but I do wonder if he maybe sets a career high in attempts, which looking right now is 558.
I think
he can easily get to 600 attempts with this Denver team, I'd imagine, and still probably maintain some form of efficiency. So I guess that's me banking on it. I will say, in a startup that I did, I was at the 114, and this exact scenario came up. Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts available for me to take. And I thought they're both risky in terms of the long-term there, but I think also both possess upside that, especially going for a win now team, either could be really productive. So having both as a duo also maybe minimizes the risk overall. As long as one of them can maintain something, then I'm not so concerned. You're not as worried, not as much invested in one. I mean, much invested. It's the 201s. That's a lot to invest. What I did in the startup, though, was actually traded down instead of taking Hurts. I took Wilson at 114, and then I kept actually trading down from that point. Didn't take again until the 5th round. Accumulated a couple extra 23 firsts, and then also had a bunch of extra picks in those rounds. I think I went 3 5ths, 3 6ths, 3 7ths, kind of built my team there with a lot of win now pieces: Chubb, Montgomery, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. So I feel like this is maybe me taking Hurts is also me. Okay, what's the alternative reality of if I didn't trade back? What would a team look like at the turn? Wilson, Hurts, and I would legit do this. So I felt it was also appropriate to do it in a mock draft setting.
I'm going to defend Russell Wilson a little bit for you as well, Kyle. He came back so quickly from that finger injury. I think it kind of got underplayed how bad it was and how much it probably really affected his efficiency, even in weeks where he came back. I mean, he had a fracture that they basically needed to put pins in, which is usually, a 6-week injury at a minimum, sometimes longer. And he came back in 4 weeks, which is really amazing. And it's kind of a testament to, what kind of a hard-nosed player he is. But the reason that he ended up getting the surgery was because he tore the tendons and his finger was bent in a position where he couldn't straighten and accurately throw the football at all. So that's why they had to go in and do surgery. And he came back from that in a month. So I think that it's very reasonable to estimate that he's going to improve on what he did last year just on the basis of that. And then you add in that he's in a different situation in Denver and things are kind of looking up there. All those things together, I think it's a very reasonable risk to take at that spot, especially given the player that went right after you took Jalen Hurts, Kyle, which was surprising to me. But I don't know how you guys felt about that.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say one thing about the Russell aspect that was profound to me is, Russell's 33 and the 34-year-old I'm expecting to be similarly productive this year as Stafford went at 2.7. And Kyle, to your point as well with a 14-team startup, I think any league size that's larger than 12, I understand taking any QBs at the turn because QBs clear out quick. And anything larger than 12, if you don't snag them quick, you can get in a rough spot real quick.
Yeah, I'm looking at your quarterback.
Hey, I got DJ, baby. Forget Burrow. I'm good. Don't worry about me.
But okay, so Doc, you're kind of hinting at Deshaun Watson coming up next at the 202. I'll be honest. And I know I was in a startup that started the day when Deshaun got traded to Cleveland. Like, a few hours after that trade was announced, he went 104 in that startup. So he's just like the same thing as Dak and Wilson and Najee. Like you won't see him in every first of every startup, but I think Watson's probably the most likely out of all those guys to go up in the first, to be honest. So maybe in this iteration that these particular drafters that are here, we're maybe a little more cautious with Watson. Right? I mean, clearly I took two quarterbacks right ahead of him, and I'd say Dak is maybe the only one that is maybe clearly, tier ahead of him, has kind of shown that top 5 upside before, and we think can repeat that. I guess Hurts was pretty close last year too, but think can repeat that over the long term.
If you're going to force go ahead.
I was gonna say I get the Watson pick there, just because if you do look at the quarterbacks after him, it's a lot of questions. It's Trey Land, Fields, Lawrence, who all really didn't prove a whole lot last year. Compared to also a little bit of age with Stafford and Brady in the mix there. So, I mean, it's not a great situation, but I think if you go into it saying, okay, I'm going to lose, not really have my super flex option this year, hopefully, and then maybe in the future I'll have more, but it still is definitely risky. I mean, I've seen them go anywhere, like you said, from the 104 all the way down to, 210, somewhere in there. So it's definitely risky, but I guess I see, if someone wants the upside of he's proven he's still on the younger side, you can maybe absorb that hit if you draft good enough.
And if you're gonna do it, wouldn't it make the most sense if you've already gone with a quarterback and I want to double up, I want to kind of hoard the position, so like it'd make more sense to go Dak Watson than it would say Najee Harris Watson, right? Like that would seem like you're putting a lot of risk. Go ahead, Gerson. You seem like you want to say something.
I think because I drafted Deshaun Watson in the second round like that. I believe I was 112. And then I drafted him at 113 or 112, one or two. But what I did in the later round, I drafted Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And then after that, in the later round, I drafted Brissett just to have security, quarterback security. No matter what, either Brissett start or I have Tom Brady. You have to set yourself up for the suspension. You know it's coming. You just don't know how long it is. And based on all those the allegations he agreed or whatever that he did, like settle the settlement, I'm guessing the NFL pulled him to the side and said, hey, all right, you got to do something, man. Show us that you're willing to cooperate and and he went out there, got a settlement, and I think the NFL is probably going to suspend him for like half of the season. If they suspend him the whole season,
I think it's going to be more than that. And here's the thing that I want to push back on. I've been doing shows with you guys for a year and a half. He's been off my board since last summer. He's still off my board, and here's why. Today he has whatever many allegations he has. They keep coming out of the woodwork. I mean, whatever's happening today doesn't mean it's what's going to happen tomorrow, and that's what your risk is. I said it before, I'm going to say it again, just so it's recorded again. There is a non-zero chance they suspend him indefinitely, and you need to take that into account. We're making an assumption that it's going to be 8 games, it's going to be a year, whatever, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. That is not necessarily the case. So
all right.
Just want to put that out there. I don't really have much else to say about it.
Yeah, they've I've had him actually in 2 of my leagues that I had previous to him actually getting into this legal trouble, and I've tried to get rid of him in every single one. I've managed to get rid of him in all but one so far. But yeah, I don't trust the situation at all. I mean, it just kind of feels gross also just on a person level to have someone like that on my team. So I've been trying to get rid of him for pretty much anything that I can. But I will also, I mean, you got to look at some of the other suspensions in the, that have happened. That, I mean, you're talking that Calvin Ridley got suspended for a year for, the $1,500 bet that he placed for the Falcons to win. If they come back and they're the NFL is trying to grab on to having a woman audience and bring them into the fold, it's going to be kind of a slap in the face if they give them anything less than a year. I mean, when you have that kind of precedent set with Calvin Ridley already out there, it's hard to do anything less. So I think it's going to be pretty substantial. I think that's why it's taken so long. And I think it's more of the team telling him, hey, go get this stuff settled. rather than the NFL actually telling him to. I feel like it's the Browns trying to protect their investment, telling him, hey, go get this taken care of.
Yeah. Doc, I agree with you, though. For me, Deshaun, obviously he was QB5 3 years in a row when he was playing, but 202 is way ridiculously
Right.
high for me. I mean, I took him in a startup. I don't love having him on my team either, but I took him in the 7th round. I had Brady. I have another one of those top tier QBs, It was just a fly on the wall, a guy that I can kind of forget about. I'll probably try and use him as trade bait, but I mean, the 2nd round is just so aggressive for me when I don't know what the situation is, when it's going to get better. Are we going to see any of this stuff go to court where he's just on the commissioner's list for a year or however long it's going to be before they even put a punishment out? I don't want to find out. And especially with the 2nd round pick there. I mean, if you're making me take Wilson, I know I was just giving him a hard time about Wilson at 112. But if you're making me take Wilson and Hurts at the turn or take Watson at 202, I'll take the Wilson Hurts every day of the week over that because that's way too early for me. And obviously we'll dive into the further rounds, but I look at the rest of his roster from what we see on the screen too, and it's tough because we don't know how long Deshaun's out for, and you see Kamara and Chubb there, and who knows how long they're around for. Does he have that other top tier QB while his RBs are there? While they're primary.
Kamara's staring a suspension in the face as well. So you got 2 players on the same team looking at a suspension there. So could be pretty rough go of it to start the season.
Well, it's funny. He's got the Watson, Chubb, Cooper stack, right? So it's you make a bet, right? You bet that maybe what Gersa would say. You bet on that side that it's only going to be 6 games, and that you have him for a playoff run. Right? I mean, there is a possibility that is what happens. Like we really don't know. Like the range of outcomes of what it could be is massive, probably larger than any other player suspension or disciplinary action we've seen. So, So I guess just back to Gerson real quick. Wilson Hurts. Is it just like, are you not in love with the Hurts pick either? Like, what would you have done in my shoes at the turn there?
I would have done the same thing. I would have picked Hurt over Watson. I have Hurt as a top 5 quarterback. Coming into the season, I really believe in the offense they surrounded with him. And actually, I lied. I think he's number 6 on my list. Double check. Yeah, he's number 6. I love what they've done in the offseason. I love the quarterback coaches that he got. I mean, a lot of the quarterback coaches that he trained in the offseason with. I've said on other shows too that Carson Wentz had a career season. Tom Brady got trained by them. Jordan Palmer is known as a quarterback coach to be a guru, and if he can fix his mechanic, which they already said in training camp that his mechanic looked more clear, more clean, better, and he looked better on the field. And then you add AJ Brown, and you got Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders can catch the ball in the backfield, catch his game well. That offensive line is still pretty good. So I'm excited to see what Jalen can do, especially since he had a good fantasy season, but he didn't have a good quarterback season, like real life quarterback season, if you were to look at his stats in real life, you'd be like, ew, but we're here for fantasy. So I'm excited for Jalen. I'm gonna ride that train, man. I'm just gonna be in on Jalen Hurts quite a bit.
Yeah. So it's funny. Pockets of quarterbacks, right? The first 4 picks, then Murray, Burrow back to back, and then another 4 here in a row, and then we get 4 picks of non-quarterbacks, 2 older kind of win now guys, Christian McCaffrey and Cooper Kupp. And it's funny, both those teams doubling up, running back, Harris, McCaffrey, and then Chase Kupp, younger and older guys. So I guess a balanced age. And then the next 2 picks being younger assets, Javonte Williams, and then Big Pulowski taking a big shot on a young tight end. He's supposed to be a big deal there, and Kyle Pitts. So go ahead,
I
Zach.
love it. No, I'm happy with Pitts there. I don't usually see Pitts fall that far. I usually see him taking it the turn in most of the startups I've been in. And for me, I kind of like the idea of having one of my QBs in my tight end position just taken care of for a while. I'll dive more into my following picks as we get there, but I kind of short up my QB 1, my tight end 1, not really worried about those positions at all. So, hey, it's nice where if you address kind of the elite guys at a position that are on the younger side, any focus you put into trying to make trades or draft picks where, say, you are drafting for position in a rookie draft, you already know what you need. It's, I only need wide receivers or running backs. And with startups, if there's a position I feel weak at, I'm always trying to set myself up where it's going to be wide receiver because that's the easiest one to address in any rookie draft or via trade. So I'm really happy with Pitts at 2-6, and yeah, I'm feeling good about my team through 2 rounds.
And then Gerson, you're up next. You took Matthew Stafford, and I guess you seem to really like my taking of Jalen Hurts. Not so much about Russell Wilson. If you were in my shoes, would you have gone Hurts Stafford instead, or is this just a consolation prize on those other quarterbacks falling or not falling to you?
Yeah, I probably would have gone Hurts Stafford, but I mean, I don't mind Russell Wilson. It's just like to me, I think Stafford has a better floor than Russell Wilson. I mean, he had Allen Robinson coming in too, and we know what McVay does. He made Stafford look pretty amazing last year. He went and got Allen Robinson. It's just I expect that offense to be better, and I think they kind of saw even with Cam Akers last season in the playoff, like, okay, is Cam Akers really the guy? I think he is, but like, are they going to run the ball as much as they did before, or are they going to rely on Stafford? And Stafford, to me, is just going to sling that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you can talk to me more about his injury, Doc, but didn't he get like an elbow surgery or something like that, like a minor elbow surgery? But I could be wrong, though.
Wait, you talking about Stafford?
Yeah.
I don't think it was anything major. I think it was just like a cleanup or, nothing significant.
Okay. But yeah, I just think Stafford had a better floor than Russell Wilson. So that would have been my pick for Stafford. I think the offense he's in, the coach, he's gonna be in a great position. Now with Wilson, he's going to Denver. He has a good weapon, we think. We really never seen any of those weapons besides Sutton be like a top 12 wide receiver. He has a great running tandem in Devontae Williams. There's a lot of we think, right, with the Denver Broncos offense, but with the Rams offense, we know it's good. We know they can go out there and score 30 points any game. But to me, it's just about the floor right there.
All right, thanks for the input. Brian, I guess you'd pick up next with Trey Land. So not going quarterback in the first round, but, made the decision to take a QB in the second round.
Yeah, I like Lance better than any of the other sophomore quarterbacks, especially in regards to the talent he's got around him. He's got definitely more skill position players than the others do. And then I love the running upside. He's obviously you can say the same thing about Fields, but Fields doesn't have the skill package by any means that Lance does. So personal preference in college was Lance. It remains the same now. So
yeah, and I think I think for me, I had Fields ahead of Lance anyway. I think wherever you kind of had your eyes on them kind of before, it probably remained the same, right? If you liked Fields before, you see, okay, you had a QB5 week last year.
None of them showed anything last year necessarily, and
I think we lost Brian.
Hey, Kyle, I think Brian borrowed Hamid's router from the original Dynasty Gambit.
It keeps moving on. That's the consistency is the internet. That none of the co-hosts are ever on for every episode, but that'll always remain. But Doc, we'll go to you with the Jackson Andrews stack, and it was referenced earlier. Was there any temptation to go anyone else, or was that something where you were eyeing it kind of throughout the second round? Is eyeing it, hoping as soon as you took Jackson that you'd get Andrews? Like, what was this? Did this go according to plan, or was this a flick of the wrist decision on the spur?
Well, it's a really good question. I just wanted to I looked it up while everybody else was talking. So Stafford played through his elbow injury all last year, and he got an injection in his elbow, but they didn't do anything to go in and clean it up. I'm not particularly worried about that unless we get closer to the season and it looks like he's really hampered. They're just letting him rest, and he's in his mid-30s now, and he threw a bunch last year, so just maintenance for a veteran guy, and wear and tear from being an NFL quarterback for the better part of a decade plus. So Not really concerned about that. But as far as my pick, I mean, if you look at the big board, you see there's two people who went quarterback, tight end. So the big Pulowski kind of said a lot of it. For me, like, you know, I really like Mark Andrews. It wasn't something where I expected it. I wouldn't have been surprised if he wasn't there. So it wasn't like it was something that I planned when I took Lamar Jackson. I was like, Mark Andrews could easily go in the beginning or middle part of the second round. But if he is going to be there, I'm going to strongly consider it unless I have something compelling. I really did consider CD Lamb in that spot just because I'm really kind of enamored with his ability and upside. But the opportunity to, as Zach put it, to kind of shore up the tight end position, plus the added fact that you get, you know, what is a real top tier tight end who's produced already, and to get the stack on top of it, it was too much to pass up. And just to kind of dovetail off of what Zach was saying, it really, in my opinion, when you know, if you make the investment early to get a tight end, and get an elite tight end, it really does kind of take some of the pressure off of you later to kind of find those veterans and, oh, I like this guy, but I got sniped and now I got to go in another direction. It really takes some of the pressure off of that. And it's like, once I had a quarterback and a tight end that I was really happy with, I was able to just kind of relax into the rest of the draft and let it come to me. And I know it's personal preference, and some people like to mine for tight end gold, and I certainly appreciate that. I'm a fantasy baseball player, and people talk about I want to take a closer early because I don't want to hunt for closers. I love hunting for closers more than maybe anything else. Like digging up these guys that nobody's ever heard of who go out and get like 20 saves. Like I live for that opportunity. So like they like one person's trash is another person's treasure. But when it comes to fantasy football, I kind of go the other direction. It's like I will pay the premium to get the elite tight end and kind of shore that position up just so I can kind of relax into the rest of the draft. So I totally understand people that are not, you know, they're bearish on taking the early tight end, especially people that got burned with Darren Waller last year. And he burned me in a couple of leagues, you know, myself, but he got hurt, and, you know, people get hurt in football. That's the way it goes. But that was kind of the thought process, and I didn't think about it. I thought about it a little bit, but I didn't think about it too much. But it wasn't something I expected. But when it was there, I was very happy to do it, and then I could just kind of relax into the rest of the draft.
I was going to say great minds think alike because we're both doing the QB tight end picks, but then you mentioned how you're not taking the closers early, and we clearly don't think alike. I mean, I have Josh Hader and Devin Williams.
You're a young buck. Well, I'll bring you over to the dark side. Don't worry.
Brewers bullpen, don't you worry.
Oh God. Just to kind of go with your point, Doc, of the positional scarcity. You don't necessarily need Andrews to outscore the next few players to justify the pick, right? Because you can replace maybe some of those players coming up at their positions and get comparable production at later picks, where it might have been more difficult to do so with Andrews. So I guess funny enough that like this will be the 20th pick of the draft, I suppose, or 21st pick of the draft.
Yeah.
And I guess it's funny, through 20 picks, you had 12 quarterbacks, and so more than half. And then I get 4 running backs, only 3 wide receivers. So after Mark Andrews, DeAndre Swift goes, and then Devin. I'm pretty sure this is your wide receiver 3. So to get him at your, as the wide receiver 4 in this draft isn't maybe as shocking as the fact that he fell to the 211, I guess. Or did he fall in your eyes? Like, is this, were you shocked to see CD Lamb there available for you?
Yeah, I was definitely shocked. I know we've kind of had some interactions in the league we're in together about possibly trying to trade him, but I'm very high on Lamb, and I think his future is very bright. And yeah, when I originally slotted myself into the second pick, it was honestly because I was like, okay, I want to see what could happen if I get Herbert, because I knew I was taking Herbert at that point. So I did not expect Lamb to be there. So yeah, to say I was this is the point when I started, was like when I texted the group and I was like, I really wish this was a real draft, because I would have been real happy to get Lamb there with my second pick. But I do agree with Zach. A lot of the times, like, as you can tell kind of from the rest of my board there, wide receiver is a position I like to wait on. It's something that I feel like you can get pretty good value on later on down, just because of how deep of a pool it is. But with him there, he was the last one of that tier. Like you said, I have him in my top 3. So really kind of felt like I had to take him there. I was really sweating it, didn't think he was going to fall, and he kept falling and falling. So Very excited to get Lamb there is actually a little bit of an understatement.
And I wonder how excited Jeff was, her boss, Jeff Lambert, going for 2 to get his 49ers player, Deebo Samuel. At least we think he's going to be in the 49ers this year. Jalen Waddle as well, so pairing with a couple of young receivers. And then, Zach, you came back. I mean, were you excited, just as excited to get Justin Fields here as well?
Oh, yeah. That's what, so to me, when I was going through this, I said, okay, if I take Lamb here, realistically, if he takes Fields or someone like that, then who am I going to take? And there was still some, younger upside quarterbacks left. Breece Hall was still there. So there were some people with some upside that I was like willing to risk not taking a quarterback and just locking in Lamb. So as you can tell from my hat, I am a Bears homer. I've always loved Fields coming out. I was so pumped when the Bears got him. I was literally scared all of my cats because I jumped up and was screaming at the TV when they said we traded up. So I try to get him a lot. I'm really looking forward to this year. I think last year you really got to take into account that Matt Nagy has no idea what he's doing. So if you take that into effect, new coaching staff, I think the future is very bright. I understand he's got very limited weapons, but I think they're going to try to protect him a little bit this year, lean on Montgomery in the running game, but I still think the future is bright. And to get a 22-year-old quarterback beginning of the 3rd round, I'll take that all day.
So I guess the question to everyone up to this point were there any surprising picks? I suppose we mentioned kind of Najee Harris maybe being the shocker of the 1st round, even if it is late in first. Were there any surprises in the 2nd? Anyone see any players they think feel out of place in the 2nd round?
Outside of Deshaun, we already covered that. I mean, some of the QBs, it's tricky because I feel like after that first group of 7, they bounce around. I mean, I see so many people. Some people are really aggressive, beginning of the 2nd, trying to get Trey Land. I mean, sometimes you'll see him in the 3rd. It all depends on, I think this range right here, it's really easy for a lot of guys to get their case for why they deserve to be taken where they are.
Yeah,
there's no. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Devin.
I was just saying, there's no one in the 2nd round compared to like the 1st round that I like. I'm looking at all these names and none of them stick out to me as far as like, oh, that was a reach or a bad pick. I think all of them are pretty justifiably 2nd round picks at this point.
Looking at the 2nd, the first thing that stands out to me is, or even that 2-3 turn is Swift, Lamb, and Fields. And it seems like that's kind of later in their price. Like that's kind of. Maybe Fields, we're seeing him drop a little bit into the 3rd round more often, but I definitely feel like, last year he was a 1st, 2nd round, turn pick in some startup drafts. So, see him at 302 seems like it's early. To me, seems late. I'd say the one player that maybe seems early to me is Jalen Waddle. I know last year that production, 140 targets, but then Tyreek Hill coming in. So, Jeff's clearly thinking Waddle's still the wide receiver 1 there, taking him when Tyreek Hill's still on the board, although Tyreek Hill did fall quite a bit too. So any shock with Waddle, or does everyone feel like that's a solid pick there at wide receiver? I guess that makes him the wide receiver 6 in this draft.
To me, I feel like he might think that's more of just an age thing. He showed that he can be the true wide receiver 1. You're not going to take Hill there. Maybe you could have took maybe like AJ Brown there or something, of someone like a similar skill set, an age group. But I think mostly he went Waddle there just for the age upside.
I know Jeff, and he likes to draft all his wide receivers before his running back. He loved building for the future. Like, he knows wide receiver has longevity over running back. And based on quarterback he drafted, he's going to need another quarterback pretty freaking fast. But, I mean, I probably would have taken a quarterback before Pittman. But I know what he's doing. He drafts for wide receivers for longevity and then figures that out the rest of the way. But I love the Waddle pick. I think Waddle's still pretty good. I mean, I know he did that as a rookie, but, I mean, having Tyreek there only going to help him open up more. More opportunity for him. I think everybody thinks it's going to hurt Waddle. I think it's going to hurt Gesicki more than anything, not Waddle.
Yeah, agreed.
And, we at 303, we finally see the first rookie, as rookies were included in the startup. So Brees Hall, the unanimous rookie 101, makes sense. He'd be the first rookie going in a startup. Does 303 seem like that makes sense to what everyone else is seeing? Like, does that seem early? Does that seem late? Anyone have any thoughts about Brees Hall there?
That seems solid to me. I mean, you're getting him at pick 27. I could see him even going a couple of picks ahead of that.
I was debating with him and Lamb, and then I also debated on it with him and Fields again. So like, hopefully everyone thinks it's a justified spot because I was thinking about it 4 spots before that. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to be the wet. I'm going to be the wet blanket in the room when it comes to Brees Hall. We've already danced to this song once already, and his name was Javonte Williams, and everybody assumed that he was going to be the guy, and Melvin Gordon was just going to go gentle into that good night, and we're still waiting for that to happen. And Michael Carter was a pretty hyped rookie when he came into the league, and that was all of last year. And the other thing that I live in the New York metro area. I live in New Jersey. And the thing is, there is always the chance that the Jets are just a spectacular dumpster fire. You can never rule that. You can never really rule that out. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. And don't at me, Jet fans. I mean, you know who they are. So let's not pretend that that there's a 0% chance that the whole team could just implode like they have for the better part of the last decade and change. So that really scares me, in addition to the fact that he could end up not getting the job. And it's just too much for me. Like, this price at this point, even if you want a running back, I just wouldn't do it. If you're enamored with the player and you love the player, I can't fault you for it. And that's one of the things I love about Dynasty is like, when we look at a team, it's like, what I really try to do is put myself into the person's mindset who's drafting, because I know what my mindset is. And there was a 0% chance that I was taking Brees Hall at any point, remotely close to where he was actually going to go. So essentially he was off my board, because where I would take him, everybody else in the room probably would have taken him already. So for his team, I think it makes sense. And clearly he feels differently about it. And that's great. We'll see who's right. But that's, kind of the way that I approach it. But for me,
it's funny because, Gerson, you're referencing Jeff's strategy, build through the young receivers. It seems like this manager is building through young running backs, Swift and then Hall, right? So kind of, and I feel like just in the dynasty landscape, both are viewed as top 5 dynasty running backs in terms of value. So to see them go as the RB 5 and 6 in the draft probably seems to make sense. So to your point, Doc, if you don't want him, it's an easy avoid, because this is probably the range. Like, this doesn't seem like an extremely early example of Brees Hall, like early thirds. I feel like some of the startups I've done this year, that's where he's gone.
That's where he goes.
Ones where the rookies are involved.
I was happy to see it, because for a running back standpoint, I knew I wanted to take one this round. And I was looking at, I wanted Swift once he was gone towards the tail part of the second. It was mixing up next on my list. So watching Hall and then Eckler go, I was like, sweet, that makes my life easier. I know I'm getting my guy.
Well, Brian, I guess same question to you. What were you thinking? Getting Eckler there, were you hoping to get Brees Hall, or did you want to get the veteran to pair with the young Jonathan Taylor?
No, I mean, like I said, Hall could have gone earlier, but he wasn't my pick. He could have gone earlier for some, but not for me. I actually prefer Eckler out of all these ones that came in here, and I know he's got, in some people's minds, he's got some competition coming forward. But all it does to me is Eckler's going to be as efficient as he was last year. It'll just give him more opportunities without getting hurt. So I'm okay for a few of his touchdowns and carries, and most importantly, catches to go elsewhere. It probably helps his longevity.
Doc, I mean, you've talked so much about Tom Brady. Is there anything you want to add? We kind of skipped over your pick there at the 304, but pairing Lamar Jackson Andrew stack with Tom Brady. Any quick thoughts you want to share? Or?
Yeah, just the only thing that I'll say is this, this is earlier than I would probably like to force myself into like making a choice as far as being, win now for sure. So, when you take Tom Brady as your QB2, you're really kind of going in that direction where it's like, okay, like I'm not playing for the future. The future is now. So it was too much production to pass up, even though it might be a little early given his age. I'm not entirely convinced that he doesn't end up playing for another year or two. I know we've heard this before, where we kind of assumed that this year was his last year, and it was until it wasn't. It wouldn't. I'm not planning on it. I'm going in with the same assumption that this is it. This is his year, and this is the year that with this team, if I was playing it out, I'm going to try to win. But it would not shock me if he ended up playing for another year or two, and that would just be a bonus. And I want to give a hat tip to Gerson because I think he has. We talked about tight ends. The guy that I actually was also considering was Kelsey where I took Mark Andrews, and he fell all the way to the 5th round. So I think Gerson got a tremendous steal. I actually considered him again in the round right when he went a couple of picks before Gerson took him and taking him instead of Derrick Henry. So I went with one kind of perceived old crusty guy instead of another one. But I mean, that's just tremendous production. And to get somebody that I was considering in the end of the 2nd round all the way down in the 5th round is amazing. And again, same thing. It's like Kelsey. Yeah, there's this perception that he's like got 1 or 2 more years left. I know I've said it before and I'll say it again. They said the same thing about Antonio Gates, and he showed up for 6 more years and he was a tight end 1 the whole way down. So, this presumption of like, oh, he's getting older now and he's going to suck in a year. It's like, yeah, maybe. And also maybe not. And you're giving away a lot of value in production by passing on him. Just putting it out there.
I was not thrilled. Go ahead.
I got a question for you, Doc. Was this being a mock? Did that have anything to do with you taking Brady here, of being like, I just want to see where doesn't come out, or even if this was like in a real league, would you have passed over some of the other quarterback options that were left on the board there?
It's a fair question. The only other one that I really considered, I'm a big production guy, and I for guys that play, we're in Dynasty. Some of us are in a Dynasty league together. I think the 3-year window thing, I think it's too long. My personal opinion in the NFL, I think 2 years max. So you give me a guy who is going to play for 2 more years, I'm good with that. So the other guy that I considered just based on production was Aaron Rodgers. And I thought about it, and I'm like, I like Aaron Rodgers. I like Tom Brady. They both should be top 5, maybe top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL potentially. We know what they can do. It's probably not going to be for much longer, but I can't argue with that production. I'm not, again, entirely convinced. Aaron Rodgers, I love the guy, but I mean, he's a free spirit. He might decide he wants to go, play the pan flute in Zanzibar and go do it, and he's like, I can still play quarterback, but I'm done with this. Take your $150 million and shove it. And that wouldn't surprise me either. So this idea of like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is going to play for 3 more years and Tom Brady's only going to play for 1. It's like, I'm not so sure. It could easily go the other way.
I think it's the other way. I think it's the other way.
Yeah, it could. So that was my thought process.
Your Brady pick bummed me out though, because I wasn't ready to pull the trigger on. I wanted Mixon there, but I knew that was going to expedite the next 4 guys that went, who were the next 4 I was eyeing. And then by the time the 4th round came back to me, it's like, oh, cool. Lawrence, Rodgers, Carr, and Wilson, the guys I was really considering at the 4 slot. Nope. Yeah, you screwed me. Thanks for that. But it's fine. I guess I'll take Daniel Jones.
Here's my question to you. How much did it hurt, if at all, that Devontae Adams went right before you? Would you have taken him if he made it back to you?
No. I wouldn't have taken Devontae
there now. Too soon?
No, not that at all. I mean, that's a whole other rant I could get on, but I'm concerned they have so many weapons, and I think it gets discredited a lot of what Rodgers and Adams had built together and kind of their unwritten chemistry, where I get college teammates with Carr and all that, but Carr is not the accurate QB that Rodgers is. And they haven't been doing it at the NFL level for X amount of years now. I mean, Rodgers and Adams could just look at each other and it was street ball. Like Adams would just run to a random area, find an opening, and Rodgers would hit him. I mean, I don't expect that same chemistry or that same production. I think Adams is still great. I love him as a talent, but I have a hard time seeing that same level of production in Oakland. And I think that's also just a credit to who they have as weapons around them. I mean, Green Bay, realistically,
it doesn't necessarily answer the question from Zach, but it says who isn't going to be his answer, for sure, not Adams. But Gerson, I want to kind of gear this towards you, and everyone else can kind of chime in. We know Devin's answer already is clearly CeeDee Lamb, and we'll get to my answer in a bit. But who's the wide receiver 3 in Dynasty? Because it seems like it's very clearly Jefferson and Chase. So for you, how would you answer that? Who's the wide receiver 3? Because it seems like that's a very prominent question that a lot of people might be asking themselves.
So in Dynasty?
Yeah.
I think I have CeeDee Lamb, I believe. To me, I think CeeDee Lamb's ceiling is so high. It's just with
Yeah, we know everyone knows Zach's answer in the private chat, so we don't even have to tell everyone what he said to us. Anyone who's listening to Zach knows what his answer clearly is.
No, it's CeeDee Lamb. I mean, the opportunity is going to be this year. If you, I was telling people like this CeeDee Lamb, just the ceiling is hasn't even been touched yet. So I love him. I think. I mean, he said he grew like a half inch or something, an inch and a half, and like 10 pounds or something like that. I'm like, dude, like, okay, I want to see what you do on the field, man. Like, when you're no longer you're the alpha guy. You're gonna be the Amari Cooper. Like, you're gonna be the main guy. Obviously, they drafted Tolbert too, which I love Tolbert. But CeeDee Lamb, I think he's so damn good that I can see him. You know, it wouldn't shock me if he. Like, is it next year we're sitting here and next thing you know, people say, oh, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. You know, I know people love Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but what if CeeDee Lamb goes out and puts on like the same type of season? I mean, like, it's going to be a debate over and over 1, 2, 3, you know. But I love CeeDee Lamb. People can make an argument for T. Higgins. I don't see that argument. I think those 3 are the top 3. But I know you're probably going to ask about the guy that I just drafted if he was in my top 3, but no, he's not.
Well, it's funny because I think at some points in the offseason, I think I did have AJ Brown in the top 3.
I did too. Before he got traded, he was
Yeah.
number 3 for me.
Right.
And then once he got
If he
traded,
was-
it was no.
If he was still on the Titans, it would have been a lot harder of a decision for me at the 211 right there between him and Lamb.
So we all clearly like the AJ Brown pick. I guess just real quick, Brian, did you have a different answer for wide receiver 3?
I really don't. In all fairness, I don't have a top-heavy wide receiver 3. I think there's the top 2, and then I think there's a decent gap. So.
Fair enough. How about you, Doc? Any different answers?
No, I agree. I agree with what Brian just said. And AJ Brown was easily my wide receiver 3 before he got traded. And then once he got traded, it just threw everybody into the same mix. So I could go with anybody at that point.
Yeah, that's kind of a crapshoot after the top 2 for me. I mean, I like them all. I'd be happy to have any of them on my teams. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, I'm not necessarily aggressive to take any of them after Chase or Jefferson. There's usually running backs, QBs, tight ends that I'm more aggressive in trying to find it wherever my pick is.
Well, and I think if you look at these draft results, right, between Chase at the 109 and then Lamb at the 211, we're talking a full 14 picks. There's one receiver that went that range, right? So, you know, someone really like Cooper Kupp and the season he had last year, it makes sense. I don't know that he'd be the wide, like none of us mentioned him as the wide receiver 3 in Dynasty, yet he was the wide receiver 3 in this draft. So interesting. There, I almost wondered if that would be your answer, Doc, just because of the production. I know how much you're.
Yeah,
so
he's in there, and it's hard to argue with that. So I mean, I think that's the point. Is like you can make a good argument for a good handful of players after the top 2 that we mentioned, and I think they're all valid.
So Gerson, do you want to add anything about AJ Brown?
I just think his opportunity is going to be better with Jalen Hurts. I think Tannehill. I almost said the F word, sorry. Freaking sucks. I mean, he's just horrible. I hate Tannehill. I don't get why people think like he's gonna be good or he's okay. Like without AJ Brown, I can't see that offense functioning as great as it did before. And he didn't do good last year. They got Malik Willis right there. I wouldn't be shocked if Malik Willis gets there like, I don't know, 8 games in or something, you know. But even then, AJ Brown with that offense, it's gonna help him with Devontae Smith over the top, taking the people over the top, and AJ Brown can go over the top too, you know. So it's gonna help him. I think he's gonna see better opportunity. My worry about AJ Brown is health. He hasn't been able to stay healthy in any of his seasons, and since he came to the NFL, until I can see a full productive season, I'm not gonna rank him in the top 5 in my dynasty ranking for wide receivers. But he had everything you want in that alpha male, that alpha wide receiver, you know. He has the speed, he has the size, you know, we've seen it when he's on the field, but with a better quarterback, we haven't seen that, you know, and I think Jalen Hurts, hopefully, I'm crossing my finger, I keep talking about Jalen Hurts, but hopefully it all comes together.
This leads to the 308 now, which I think might be the most surprising pick of the draft simply because of how late this player fell. Trevor Lawrence at 308. That's probably not something like that. That would be kind of like the end of his range kind of thing. Like I feel like we tend to, like, I don't know, has anyone in startups yet this year seen him fall to end of the third like this?
I've seen him further. I mean, I think it's tough to say. I mean, there's so much hype around him from what he was in college and what he was supposed to be coming out of the draft. But man, last year was brutal. Like you name any front that you want to look at it from, it's tough to find positives. I mean, the talent is there somewhere, but damn, you watch that tape and it is hard to see it sometimes. I'm still optimistic for a year or two rebound, and I always say I can't evaluate a QB until year 3. That's when I truly know one way or another. But year 1 was not what I was expecting. That's for damn sure.
No, it wasn't. It didn't look pretty at all. You watch him out there, like he would do like a play action, and then he looks at his one read, and then he doesn't know what else to do after that. But I do blame a lot of it on the coaching. Urban Meyer was trash.
Worst coach in NFL history.
Oh,
any objection to that title?
Yeah.
No, I think if we thought about it, we could come up with some good challengers for that. But
Mike McCarthy,
he's up there. He's up there. He's in the discussion.
Close, Zach. Come on.
I know.
Not even the worst Packers coach ever.
Nagy's
as
up
much
there.
as we love to hate
Nagy's up
McCarthy,
there. Trust me.
Nagy's up there. We've watched.
There's a healthy amount of Chicago.
Yeah, I mean,
coaches that are up there.
We could go on and on.
That's a different show. We could have a whole show on that. That would be hilarious.
Well, next time on the Dynasty Gambit, let's rip on the Bears the whole time.
Put that on the docket. Yeah. I'll come back for that.
I'm busy next week, guys, so I'm not going to make that one.
Well, it's funny because I'll actually plug next Thursday. Actually, next week there won't be a Dynasty game, but there will be an episode of press coverage. I'm going to have Travis May on. We're supposed to have that last week, making it up next Thursday. So just real quick, normally there's every second Thursday there's something on the Going for Two Live network, but next week there will actually be a show on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So check for that, my press coverage episode with Travis May. But go ahead, Zach.
Me? Oh, no, I'm good.
Oh, sorry. I thought you wanted to say something. I thought I was interrupting. Okay. I'm interrupting my own thoughts. I guess I was thinking of just quickly running through the next 3 picks here. Dalvin Cook, Aaron Rodgers, T. Higgins. I know Gerson already referenced him as being talked about as a potential top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty. I mean, clearly, back end of the third, that's I guess wide receiver 7, 8 in this draft.
Higgins was the guy I looked at besides Mixon for my pick. I'll say that much.
Now, and I wondered, was there a temptation for maybe a more natural stack between a quarterback and a pass catcher? Or was it just pure production? You think Mixon's going to outscore Higgins, so you'd rather have Mixon?
It's just a position. I like having an RB there that's what I view as dependable. I mean, I get some people like the 0 RB approach and some of that. I know they don't have the same lifespan, but I really do not enjoy waiting until those late rounds when I'm hoping I get the Elijah Mitchells right, because if I don't, I'm screwed. I mean, you can hit those sometimes, and I've done that in some leagues, but I've also gone the other way when I'm just selling for the next year, because it's like, all right, cool, that didn't work out, and I need to find running back still.
I'm just glad we're talking about T. Higgins. Is there any chance y'all see that he could be the wide receiver 3?
I think there's a chance, sure.
There's a chance, but it's like what I told people. People ask me, people have said, T. Higgins can jump Jamar Chase, maybe, maybe he has a better season. He might have a better season, but in the end, we see the talent, and we see, we think long-term in Dynasty. He can have a better season this season, but that doesn't mean that he's going to outproduce Jamar Chase for the lifetime, And we look at lifetime value when it comes to Dynasty.
We shouldn't make a blanket statement there, because I just, everybody plays Dynasty different, and I certainly don't. I don't look any further ahead than 2 or 3 years, and it's not that you're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't care. In 3 years, the sun could go supernova. COVID-22 could happen. We could be at war with Lithuania. We don't know what's going to happen. The rise of the machines, robo apocalypse, pestilence. I mean, I don't want to play fantasy football anymore. Any of these things could happen. I get hit by a bus, I get struck by lightning, and eaten by sharks. I'm not thinking that far ahead. That's just
Man,
me.
that's the one thing
I don't
with
want
me.
to let a blanket statement slide by as like we think about lifetime production, because I just want to reference not everybody does, and I happen to be one of those people.
That's one thing that's so funny with me. We're talking about dynasty trades. I mean, we're talking 2 or 3 years down the road. Who's to say the league's even going to be in existence 2 or 3 years down the road? So I'm a little bit reluctant for that.
Excellent point, Brian.
I'm very specific on that. I only take my long-term approach on leagues where I am confident in all the members of the league and what we have set up. Because otherwise, I mean, yeah, I'm in a whole bunch of dynasties now. I did more startups than I expected, and most of them questioning how long they'll last. So I have Tom Brady in most of them. I've got these older vets where I'm win now. And I mean, in general, even if they're all surviving and the leagues are good, I want to have a balance. I don't want to have all of mine just betting on potential. I want to have some where I'm really feeling like I'm a contender right now and not just selling myself on the hope of what it could be. And yeah, you got to assess your league. And I mean, you also just got to assess who you're playing against, because I mean, most leagues I haven't seen Tom Brady taken in round 3, but
I haven't.
When I saw that, I was like, oh, here we go. And I already knew what was about to come with those others. And it's just being aware of your surroundings with who you're kind of drafting against, how they lean in towards favoring positions, favoring players, favoring teams, like maybe Justin Fields. I mean, no, we all do it. And I mean, it happens in every league. So it's always good to be aware of that stuff. I like T. Higgins. I'm surprised to see Stephon fall to 312 though.
Which is perfect transition, because that's my answer for the wide receiver 3 in Dynasty right now. I have Stephon Diggs. We've seen him. I believe he was the wide receiver 3 2 years ago in terms of production. So we've seen him get to that status. Yeah, a little older than guys like A.J. Brown, Debo, Waddle, even especially C.D. Lamb, which seems to be the most popular answer. But he maintains his situation. A lot of these other guys aren't. There's changes. There's new bodies coming in. I mean, relatively similar Bills offense, and that Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen connection, I think, will continue to grow. So a little bit younger than, say, guys like Hill and Adams. So he's kind of almost in between them and these next.
Where's Cooper Kupp? Where's Cooper Kupp in your ranking then?
I think I've got him at 5. Probably Lamb 4, Kupp 5. Just
wow, you have Diggs 3.
Yeah, I think just a little bit more long-term potential with Diggs, but I could also easily see him being the wide receiver 1. Maybe not quite just as easily as Kupp, but close to it.
Yeah.
I think go ahead.
I was to say he did sign that extension too this offseason, so he's tied to Josh Allen for at least the next 4 years or so. So it's not a bad thing to hitch your wagon to him on that front.
I wanted to mention the surrounding weapons too. I mean, Kupp had such a crazy year, but it's hard to bet on that level of production happening again. And with someone like Stephon, he's been fairly consistent, but it's also not. The Bills didn't bring in Allen Robinson. They didn't. They don't have a running back in Cam coming back from injury where they have higher hopes. There's more weapons around Cooper, where Stephon, he's already proven he can do it alone, or if Gabriel steps up or McKenzie steps up, cool, but Stephon's consistent, so I could see him being a wide receiver 3, no problem.
All right, we got through 3 rounds, which I know the way we talk is maybe even that's a surprise. An hour and 15 for 3 rounds, that makes sense for us. But I think there was a lot of not just the specific players, but the theory behind why we're making picks. So I think some good discussions. Hopefully, people kind of learn not just about specific players, but some strategies with startups, and good example of a board here of what could be. But every draft is different, so fun exercise to do. But give the guests a chance to kind of plug what they want, and people know where they can find and follow them. So, Doc, you can again, former co-host, so we'll let you kick off the guest introductions here.
Oh, wow,
introductions.
Very, very kind of you. Well, this really was fun, and I'm enjoying this mock draft tremendously. Like, we're still in it, and Brian is actually on the clock right now, so I'm just waiting for him to snipe me.
Hope my 4 hours don't run out.
We doing a live pick here?
No, I don't know. It's up to Brian, but Yeah, you can find me occasionally on shows here on the Going for Two and Going for Two Live Network. I'm the injury analyst here, and I'm a doctor by trade. So I live, breathe, and eat and sleep injuries. And if you want to learn more about injuries, you can check out my book, Injuries Suck, but Your Fantasy Team Doesn't Have to. It's available on Amazon. There's a link on my Twitter page at TFSDoc. Hope DMs are always open if you have injury questions. I love talking about this stuff, and I love talking with you guys. So thanks for bringing me back. It's always always good to be back on the Gambit. Still feels like home. So thanks for that, and thanks for having me on.
Gerson, anything you want to share with the viewers and listeners?
I've been on a show with Devin, Zach, and you guys, the host. It's been a while since I've seen Doc, but good seeing you again, man. You can find me easily on a Friday show during the season. The DFS show, the Armchair Fantasy Show for DFS. I just pop in and out. I'm guest on a lot of people's show. But yeah, just catch me there at Fantasy GDFS on Twitter. If you have any questions or anything, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys probably catch me in Dynasty leagues too, because I started way too many this year. But yeah, see you guys around. Thanks for having me.
Of course, Gerson. Glad having you on. Speaking of DFS, I just dropped a CFL DFS article, and there's one game on right now. There's still 3 more this week, so check it out on goingfor2.com. There's so many great resources for DFS stuff and fantasy football, dynasty. The redraft season will come, so look for a lot of redraft centric articles as well. Obviously, Dynasty Gambit will always talk dynasty. Need the tag up there. Need the logo. But Zach, I guess again, popular man around the Going for Two Live network. So first off, are you doing any shows the rest of this week, next week? Anything planned here on
Zach's got 3 other shows today.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are cutting into this next one. I gotta go. No, not that I'm aware of yet. I believe the fantasy cheat sheet next week. Others, I'm sure there will be others. I feel like Ryan Fitzpatrick, where I'm just kind of always on a new team. I never know what's coming, but hey, I'm sure an opportunity will open up, and I always take them. I always love talking this stuff. And other than that, you can find me on Twitter at the Big Pulowski. Anyone that's in SFB 12, I made a very long, very in-depth Twitter thread today, but I was very proud of it. Put a lot of time and energy into making these charts, doing fantasy production comparisons from different scoring formats for QBs.
That took up my whole lunch, by the way.
I hope it was worth it. I hope it was a good lunch.
Ate that up.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
No, I appreciate it. And I had a good time with it. Yeah. So if you're in SFP 12, go check that out. It's pinned on my profile. And thanks for having me. I always love joining you guys.
Of course. And for the cheat sheet, that's Tuesday at what time? You guys going live?
I believe 8 Eastern.
Okay.
8 or 9, 9 Eastern. Sorry.
Is your cat going to guest on any of the shows? Because I will definitely tune in for that. Your cat has been maybe the best guest on the panel. Like he's in the background doing stuff.
I got this for her because she likes to. Do you want to talk to him again? I've been on mute a lot of times during this. Okay. Yep. I guess not right now.
Approving of the Bengals picks, I'm assuming on your part.
Always. Yep. It was for her. It was for her.
Makes sense. Next Tuesday, Going for Two Live. Speak on it probably starting at 7, and then fantasy cheat sheet at 9. So Tuesdays on Going for Two Live, always bumping, always great stuff happening. So the co-host, we can also sign out too. So Brian, let people know if anything you want to about yourself.
Well, you can always find me at VandeGrad92 on Twitter, and obviously I'm doing Dynasty now, but I do a ton of DFS, redraft, and all that. But the most important shout out I want to give, and I could be having selective memory, but most of the guests I see here on the panel have just recently been invited to Scott Fishbowl, and I think the number at last time was 33. I may be off by 1 or 2, but it was in the low 30s of the Going for Two staff that's gotten on that. So.
Well, I'm super happy that you and Devin both got in, and I can enjoy those experiences. So, Devin, any final words?
No, not really. Just thanks, checking us out. Follow me at Devin Deal on Twitter. Mostly talking Chicago Bears, and you can watch me live tweet my anger through that during the season. So that'd be a lot of fun for everybody. Like you just said, I got into Scott Fishbowl 12 for the first time, so I'm really excited about that. I'm trying to navigate that whole scoring system still. So I'm definitely going to be checking out Zach's some posts that he made earlier. So I think I actually saw that. Wasn't it like 23 or something like that? Was it more than that? I think I saw part of it earlier.
Just barely less.
Okay, yeah. So I think I saw part of that earlier. So if anyone has any advice for me, feel free to hit me up. I'm trying to look in some Discord chats, everything like that. So pretty excited to be a part of it this year. So
awesome. And I'm on Twitter at Senra Says. You can catch me on a few Going for Two live shows. Dynasty Gambit will be back in 2 weeks. And I mean, I'll just throw this out there to my guests right now. No pressure, but Doc, Gerson, Zach, you guys want to come back in 2 weeks and maybe, do the later half of the draft, kind of go through, or at least at the very least, go through each of our own teams individually? Is that something you guys are down for?
Yeah, I'm down.
I would love to. Unfortunately, next Thursday is my wife's birthday. So because I want to stay married.
2 Thursdays from now.
I'm gonna 2 Thursdays?
Yes.
Oh, well,
we
can definitely talk about
I want to stay married.
It's a whole birthday week. So
Doc, don't tune in live next Thursday
because I want to stay married.
We'll see if the mock's even done by then. It's a question mark at this point. It might not be done.
Yeah, Brian. No, I'm kidding.
I'm on the clock now. Maybe I'll be doing it in 2 weeks from now.
Live pick in 2 weeks will the suspense. But so I guess I should ask my co-host for that first. Is that cool, guys? Like, we cool to talk more mock drafts next week?
Oh yeah, I figured we were going to split it up. Have to do a couple more rounds.
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So check us out in 2 weeks. I guess that'll be pulling up the calendar now. That'll be in July, right? July 7th. Next week, got Tuesday on the Going for Two live network. You've got Speak on It and Fantasy Cheat Sheet. Of course, Jeff's always on every Wednesday. I'll be with Travis May next Thursday. Doc, don't check that out live. You can always check it out on repeat, either on the Going for Two YouTube page or in podcast form. Everything Going for Two related at goingfor2.com, goingfor2.com/store if you want to get these great hats. Even I know Rating Global did Scott Fishbowl shirts last year. I'm not sure if they're doing them this year, but check out Rating Global anyway. And support the Going for Two collection and all sorts of great collections there as well. On behalf of all my co-hosts and my guests and Doc, former co-host, Gerson, Zach, my co-host Brian, Devin, I'm Kyle Senner again, and wishing everyone well after this episode of the Dynasty Gambit.